So, I know I've talked about this on numerous occasions, and as you can see, it's a different location in the house. Told you this was coming, and now things are getting back to semi-normal. But like I said, I've talked about this before on numerous occasions. And as you can probably see with the video footage and picture footage I'm showing you, these here are examples of what I've been talking about. As you could tell, basically, with these images, you know, if you have a DVD of any kind, you know, a DVD of any kind, let me kind of give you an example of what I mean. Let's say, for example, I know there's one in here I can get. Hold on. Here we go. Let's say, for example, you're watching the animated Passion, which is basically a compilation, basically a combined presentation of Worthy is the Lamb and He is Risen, both created and animated at two different times. You kind of see that in the animation. But let's say you're watching this, and you decide you're going to put the DVD into your UHD Blu-Ray player. You know, you're probably wondering, okay, is it going to be the standard 480, maybe 720 480, whatever? Nope. When you put it into your UHD Blu-ray player, you will get a 4K image. That's right. And again, you see it on on these images and pictures here, that basically that is what you will get. You will get a 4K image of, you know, the presentation. You will get 4K, period. It'll upgrade. I'm not necessarily easy for me to say. I'm not necessarily saying it's going to remaster your DVD or even your Blu-ray. No. What it does is it ups the quality. It gives it a bit more color, especially you have HDR option on your television, as well as it ups, you know, the bit. You know, it's kind of like it's very similar. We'll put it this way: it's very similar to SD on BD that Shout Factory does. That's right. It's very similar to SD on BD. As a matter of fact, let me show you what I mean. Right here. This is what Frank Hill sent me. This is part of the Discotech SD on BD line. So you can kind of look at it from that perspective of when you put a DVD into your UHD Blu-ray player, that what you're getting basically is pretty much the equivalent of what you get with the SD on BD. Just bit of a bump in the bit rate, if you know what I mean. It's a bit, I would say, I would say basically, you know, it's kind of like maybe, you know, when you put Blu-ray, when you put a regular Blu-ray movie in there, in a UHD player, you get, I would say, 5 times the bit rate jump. Like, we know Blu-ray is clear. We know that pretty much the highest of qualities of Blu-rays that can be played in a regular Blu-ray player is 2K. We know that. But when you basically play a regular Blu-ray in there, even if it's at 2K, it gets a bit rate bump, in my opinion, of 5% or 5 times. It gets like a 5% to 5 times bit rate jump in sound and in picture quality. Again, it's not a remastering, it's just a bump in the bit rate. In other words, it, you know, increases the viewership. And the same could be said for DVD. But the biggest, you know, difference there is you up the bit rate basically by 10% or 10 times, if you will. And thus, by doing so, you get a more sharper image. You know, the bit rate is, you know, is basically up converted, you know, from the normal 480, 720 to basically what you see, the 3840 by 2160. You know, that's what it is. It gets up converted to 4K. It's kind of like right here on YouTube, like with this video you're watching. If you're watching this video on a 4K smart TV or a 4K monitor, and you look at that little display option in the settings, it will show you, you know, the regular video presentation of this video. It will show you that it's at 2848, it's at 2048 times 1080. It'll show you that. However, it'll show you above that, because, you know, the numbers are kind of like, you know, right next to each other. It'll show you above that, you know, what you're viewing it in. Like basically it'll show you the, you know, the resolution of where it's being filmed at, or, you know, or had been pieced together as. Well, basically, it'll show you above that number of, here's your view resolution, here's the optimism, stuff like that, and it will show you 1920 by times 80 asterisk 2.00. And what I found out by looking at that 2.00, looking it up online, is when YouTube says that, when they say 1920 by 1080 dash, you know, hashtag or asterisk 2.00, that's the equivalent of them saying you're watching this video that is being filmed, recorded, pieced together in 1080, close to 2K or 1440, you're watching it in 4K. We've upped it, basically. I mean, the same goes for some of my older videos you have seen. Some of my older videos are at 240p, and you can see that, but when you're watching it on a 4K monitor or 4K television, again, it'll show you like the second list of numbers to the top up and everything, that it's at, let's say, 480 times 240, but above that, it'll show you that you're watching it and viewing it, you know, at 1920 by 1080 times 2.0. In other words, you're watching a 240 video in 4K. It's basically upping the bit rate of the video. And that's the same when you put your DVDs, no matter what version, well, no matter what kind of DVD you have, or even your Blu-rays, into a 4K player. It's upping the bit rate. It's basically doing what Discotech, like I said, I just showed you, is doing with some of their titles. You know, it's SDing, it's taking the SD presentations or the standard full HD presentations and bumping them up to Ultra HD. That's what it's doing. The same could be said when you go onto sites like online-convert.com, or you use software that allows you, like I have basically Cyber Power Director, and the furthest it goes to, the one I have anyway, is 4K, as far as I know, after looking at it. But, you know, that's the furthest I can convert, as far as I know. But when you go to something like online-convert.com, it will allow you to convert up to 8K. Now you might say, well, that's not remastering. No, it's not. What online-convert.com is doing, and what, you know, software like Cyber Power Director or Sony Vegas does, if they have these 4K or 8K options, all they're doing is upping the bit rate of the picture, of the presentation. So that way, if you're watching it on a 4K screen or even an 8K screen, you know, you would be watching it. I mean, honestly, it'll be shown, you know, at least, well, basically it'll be shown as its original resolution, its native resolution, but because you've converted the bit rate, if you will, of the original video presentation or video resolution, you've upped the bit rate by rendering it in 4K or 8K, or converting it, you know, thanks to sites like online-convert.com, to 4K or 8K. All you're doing is taking the video presentation as it's currently being seen in, and allowing it to have more of a presentation, more of a suitable feel for 4K and 8K. That's what you're doing. Even if, like I said, even if you don't do that and you're watching, like I say, a classic 480p video on YouTube, or you're watching a classic 144p on YouTube, or 240, I should say, 240p on YouTube. You know, even if you're just watching it as that, what YouTube is doing, depending on the smart device you have, whether it's a 4K smart monitor, 4K smart TV, 8K smart monitor, 8K TV, whatever, you know, what it's doing, basically, what it's doing is it's up converting the image. It's upping the bit rate. That's why again, when you look at the stats, the nerds for stats as they call it, and it shows you, okay, here's the resolution you know it's originally recorded at, but then above it shows you the 1920 by 1080 times 2 deal. It's showing that you're watching that 240 presentation in 4K, or you're watching that 480 in 4K, or that 144 in 4K. That's the same and very similar to what's going on with DVD being played on a UHD player or Blu-ray. You know, all it's doing basically is bit rating, is converting the bit rate of the original presentation on that media, on that physical media of Blu-ray or DVD, up to a scale that is suited for the screen it's being shown on. So like with me, I have a 4K television. So when I play, and thus I have that UHD smart player with me, what it's doing is it's, you know, converting the signal to what is to the television that it's connected to. Like when I first got the UHD player, way before I got the Blu-ray, and I had it connected to my original television, which is now in this room over here. When I had it connected like that, it did detect that that is a 1080p television, and thus anything, including 4K, was presented in 1080, suitable for that screen. But when I got my Samsung 4K last year, over a year ago I should say, and connected the Blu-ray to that, or the UHD player to that, you know, when I would put a Blu-ray DVD, or Blu-ray disc I should say, or DVD disc in there, it would say, you know, it would convert it, basically I should say, to the resolution of what screen it's going to be on. So in other words, it would display it at 4K, even though what it's reading off of is a native 720 by 480 presentation, or a 1240 by 720 presentation, or 1280 by 720 presentation. You know, it would convert the bit rate of the DVD through the laser that it has, or the Blu-ray through the laser that it has, and send the signal to the television it's connected to, saying, okay, here's something you can put into 4K. I know it sounds complicated, but again, the examples I showed you in these videos, you know, should help out, should give you the idea here, easy for me to say, that despite what people might tell you otherwise, all you're doing is doing exactly what, like I said, companies like Warner Brothers, companies like Discotech, and others are doing. You are basically just getting a bit rate jump, you know, a jump in bit rate with with you putting a DVD or regular Blu-ray in a UHD player, and it's just upping the bit rate to be more suitable for the screen it's being on, mostly 4K or 8K. That's all it's doing. The same, like I said, with YouTube. The screen basically, you know, the screen will basically be showcased in 4K. Like, you know, being a smart TV, it'll know, okay, I'm a 4K television, but some of these videos people are going to play off of me through YouTube are 480, 720, 1080, whatever the case is. So I'm going to up the bit of it to 4K, so it feels more presentationable. And again, if you have the added advantage of HDR on there, it definitely helps out and makes you feel like what you're watching is a 4K presentation of something on television instead of what you know it really is. You know, basically the resolution it's, you know, presented in. But I just wanted to come on here, guys, do this video, kind of talk about that one more time. I know people might say you've talked about it a lot, but I also want to do it by showing you some visual presentations again. I think I've done that before, of how this works, so that nobody is kind of confused or conflicted, because again, there are people out there that still feel that's not necessarily true. Well, the evidence, you know, here in this video is right in front of you. So hopefully this helped out, guys, and until next time, let me know what your thoughts are. Comment below, live chat during the premiere, like the video. Check me out at my Teespring store. Check me out at BW Roasted Discussions, all your favorite audio podcast locations, except for Pandora. Also check me out at Venmo, at Brian-Warmer-2 to support me there. At Cash App at BWRoses98 to support me there. Patreon.com/BWRoses to support me with a $1, $3 tier. Also check me out at my Teespring store, like I said. Also check me out at VENMO at BW Roses for content you can't get anywhere else here on YouTube. Also check me out at deviantart.com/BVW1979. And until next time, guys, let me know what your thoughts are. And until then, I'm out.